You've probably had one, maybe you report to one, hey, maybe you are one, a manager. But what do they actually do all day? In this explainer, we're going to break down their core functions, the different hats they wear, and why their job is so absolutely crucial to getting anything done.
And look, it's a totally fair question. I mean, you see them in meetings, you get those emails from them, but sometimes it's hard to connect the dots. What is the actual job behind the title? Let's unpack it.
Okay, so before we can jump into what they do, we first have to get crystal clear on who they are and where they fit into the bigger picture. So first things first, every manager works inside what we call an organization. And an organization, it's not just a building, right? It's this intentional mix of three things: a purpose, the people, and a structure. And really, the manager's whole job is to get those three things to work together seamlessly. Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but let's break it down. The key thing to get here is that a manager's job isn't always to do the hands-on work. It's to coordinate and oversee other people's work to hit those big goals. They're kind of like the conductor of an orchestra, you know? Making sure the violins and the drums all come in at the right time to create something amazing. And manager isn't just one single job title, of course. It's really a hierarchy. You've got your first-line managers, who are right there in the trenches dealing with the day-to-day stuff. Then you have middle managers. Think of them as the translators. They take the big, lofty goals from the top managers and turn them into actual, doable plans for the frontline teams.
And what's really interesting is that as you climb that ladder, the skills you need totally change. Down on the front line, it's all about technical skills, knowing how to do the job. But way up at the top, it's all about conceptual skills, being able to see the entire forest, not just a few trees. But what's the one thing that's crucial at every single level? Yup, human skills. Because at the end of the day, management is always about people.
All right, so we've got a handle on who managers are and the skills they need. But what do they, do all day? Well, it pretty much boils down to four main jobs. You can think of it as their playbook. To make this super simple, let's use an analogy. Think about a manager's job like getting a train from point A to point B. It's not just one single action, right? It's a whole series of critical steps that all have to happen in the right order to get to the destination. So here they are, the four big functions. First up is planning. This is literally laying the tracks, setting the goals and deciding the route. Then you've got organizing. That's all about assembling the train cars, figuring out who's responsible for what. After that comes leading. This is the conductor's role, motivating everyone and keeping the energy up. And finally, you have controlling. You got to make sure the train stays on schedule and doesn't go off the rails. So while they're doing all that, planning, organizing, and so on, managers are also constantly switching roles. I like to think of it as them wearing three different hats, depending on what the situation calls for.
And this is the reality of their day. It's just a constant shuffle between these three hats. They've got the interpersonal hat on when they're being a leader or a figurehead. Then they switch to the informational hat to act as a spokesperson, passing news up and down the company. And of course, there's the decisional hat. That's for when they have to make the tough calls, handle a crisis, or negotiate a deal.
Okay, so with all this going on, how can you tell if a manager is actually any good at their job? Well, it really boils down to two critical words: efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is all about doing things right. It's about being fast and lean and not wasting resources. But effectiveness, that's about doing the right things. Are you actually hitting the goals you're supposed to hit? You see, you could be super efficient at a task that's completely useless. And this is where the magic happens. Think about it. If you're highly efficient but not effective, well, that's like perfectly building a beautiful ladder, but then leaning it against the wrong wall. You did the task perfectly, but you completely missed the point. The sweet spot, the place every great manager wants to live, is that top right corner. Doing the right things and doing them right.
Okay, so we've talked about the classic, timeless principles of management. But let's be real, the job is not a museum piece. It is constantly being reshaped by the world around us.
I mean, the world today is just different. And the manager's job description is basically being rewritten in real time by these huge forces of change. Things like the incredible speed of technology, new demands for ethical behavior, way more competition, and even global security threats. And let's just zero in on the digital era for a second, because it has been a total game changer. All of a sudden, your team isn't just in the next cubicle over. They could be scattered across different continents and time zones. That requires a whole new way of managing. And gut feelings? Yeah, those don't cut it anymore. Decisions have to be backed by data. It's just a faster, more complex world out there.
But even with all this crazy change, some core truths never go out of style. And this quote from the management guru Peter Drucker really hits it home. No matter what new app or tech comes along, a good manager never, ever forgets that it all comes down to the customer. And speaking of new challenges, today's managers have another huge one on their plate: sustainability. And look, this isn't just some buzzword about recycling. It means that a manager today has to balance the company's financial success with its responsibility to the environment and to society. It's this whole new part of the job that's absolutely non-negotiable.
So, after all that, why does any of this matter? Why should we even care about being a good manager or having one? What's the bottom line?
Well, it turns out it matters a ton. Think about it. A great manager creates an environment where people actually want to come to work and can do their best stuff. They help people build careers that are satisfying and meaningful. And by doing all that, they're not just helping one company succeed, they're actually making society better as a whole. It's a role with some serious impact.
And that brings us to one last really interesting question to chew on. We see technology and AI automating all kinds of tasks. So the big question is, could AI eventually replace a manager? Can an algorithm really replicate the human side of the job, the leadership, the empathy, the intuition? That's a question we're all going to be grappling with in the years to come.